Congress, I would like to welcome all of you to today's edition of our Moment of Truth series. The Moment of Truth platform is a platform where the National Democratic Congress engages with you, the media, and by extension the entire nation, to share with you our perspectives on issues of national importance. And during such engagements, as you are all aware, we serve you with the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And that is precisely what we'll be doing today. Today, we will be addressing you and by extension, the entire nation, on the state or the health of the Central Bank of Ghana. As you may be aware, the 2022 annual reports and financial statements of the Bank of Ghana is out. And that report has outraged the entire nation and has attracted a lot of commentaries. Today we share with you the official position of the NDC caucus in Parliament and the NDC party. But before I introduce our speaker for this afternoon, permit me to acknowledge media networks who are streaming this all-important press engagement on their highly esteemed platforms. To start with, we are live as always on Weezer TV. We are also live on TV3. We are live on TVXYZ and Power FM. We are live on Loud Silence platforms on social media. We are live on GH1 Television, Pan-African Television, Radio Gold, Accra FM, Class FM, CTV, Metro TV, UTV, Kesbin FM and Kesbin TV, both in Accra and in Kumasi. And for stations who may want to join the live streaming, you can get a live feed on Weezer or a clean feed on satellite on the broadcast channel on Multi TV. Having said so, ladies and gentlemen, without wasting time, I will introduce to you our speaker for this afternoon. This man was the Deputy Minister for Finance when the NDC was in office between 2013 and 2016. And as Deputy Minister for Finance, he was a representative of the Finance Minister and the government on the board of the Bank of Ghana. He's been ranking member for Finance for the NDC in Parliament, and currently he is the leader of the NDC caucus in Parliament. He is ably supported by his colleagues who are here to back him. I've seen the Member of Parliament for Sujaman, Honorable Ampem Dakon. A round of applause for them. They are doing a yeoman's job. Please get me one more chair here. Get me one more chair for Honorable Richard, the champion, who is also a member of the Finance Committee of Parliament. We have the Member of Parliament for Dudu, Honorable Nilante Vanderpoy, my senior brother. Yes. And the Bank of Ghana is located in his constituency. So that's the whose constituency of the Bank of Ghana. Then we have Honorable Yusuf Jaja, our Member of Parliament for Ayawaso North. Yes, we have the Member of Parliament for Garu constituency in the Upper East region, Honorable Albert. Yes, is also here. Thank you very much. We'll be introducing others as they join. So as I said, our speaker today is well versed in financial issues, former Deputy Minister of Finance, former rep of the Finance Minister and the government on the board of Bank of Ghana, former ranking member for Finance, and currently the MP for Ejumako, Enyane CM in the Central Region, and the leader of the NDC caucus, Honorable Dr. Ato Forson. A round of applause for him.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is with great and heavy heart and great sorrow that we welcome you to this critical press briefing. The Bank of Ghana, which is our central bank and the lender of last resort, has been dealt a catastrophic blow by the reckless, clueless, and criminally minded NPP mismanagers of our economy. And this has necessitated an urgent call to save the Central Bank of the Republic of Ghana. Many media houses, including those of you here, have in the last week covered the sad and pathetic story of the Central Bank following the release of the annual report of the Bank of Ghana for the year 2022. Everyone who understood the crucial role of the Bank of Ghana will be rightly worried about this development. It is a total disaster. Ladies and gentlemen, unless we take an urgent and drastic action, these reckless, clueless, and criminally minded NPP mismanagers of the economy have laid the final groundwork for the collapse of our financial system and the economy, which will worsen the already horrible conditions of the Ghanaian people. We in the NDC saw the red flags and have consistently warned of the mismanagement of the financial sector by the governor of the central bank and his team of incompetent deputies. This mismanagement was anchored on the jaundiced supervision by Alhaji Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, the Vice President of the Republic of Ghana, who is the brain behind the MPP's economic mismanagement team. Colleagues and ladies and gentlemen, only this week, in fact last week, the annual report and the financial statement of the Bank of Ghana was released. This report depicted the catastrophic decline of the Central Bank of Ghana into a bottomless pit. The report revealed the following astonishing facts. 1. The Bank of Ghana recorded a staggering loss of 60.8 billion Ghana cedis, which is equivalent of $6 billion US. This is twice the amount we are to receive from the recent IMF bailout. 60 billion Ghana cedis, representing $6 billion US, meaning this is twice the amount we'll be asking the IMF to give to us. This simply means that the reckless and mismanagement of the governor of the Bank of Ghana has costed the nation twice what we are struggling and sacrificing to receive from the International Monetary Fund amid its major conditionalities. Colleagues, the Bank of Ghana has also recorded a negative equity of over 55.1 billion Ghana cedis. This simply means that the Bank of Ghana is currently bankrupt, or in other words, insolvent. In other words, the once prestigious Bank of Ghana, the mother of all banks in Ghana, have been bankrupted and collapsed by the NPP economic management team led by Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, with the complicity of the governor of the central bank and his deputies. Friends from the media, many questions have been asked about how we arrived at this gloomy and sad situation, with some expressing surprise at the state of affairs of the central bank. For us in the NDC, the disaster did not come as a surprise. In fact, we in the NDC minority have always known that the Bank of Ghana was being mismanaged. We have made this point time without number, that the Bank of Ghana is a classic example of how not to manage an economy. The NDC party is on record to have informed Ghanaians on countless occasions that the Bank of Ghana has been on a dangerous trajectory, and indeed, it has now become a crime scene with the dire consequences for us all. Fellow countrymen and women, after the inept and clueless finance minister overborrowed and got Ghana locked out of the capital market due to our unsustainable debt obligations, the NPP government chose the easy, reckless, lazy, and criminal path of printing money. Unfortunately, this is how the governor of the central bank, Dr. Ernest Addison, who is now known as the printer of money, has conspired with members of economic mismanagement team led by Alhaji Dr. Bawumia and the inept Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta, aka One Program, One Bond, to destroy Ghana's central bank. After this dastardly act of overlending to the government by the central bank, they then proceeded to do the unthinkable. And the unthinkable is to write off a whopping 48.4 billion Ghana cedis, about half of Ghana's government indebtedness, to the central bank without parliamentary approval. This is illegal and criminal, and the NDC members of parliament will not allow this to pass. In fact, we will resist this. Both the mismanagement of the economy and our finances, the spectacular recklessness and ineptitude of the governor and his team has called into question the wisdom of leaving him at the helm of affairs of the central bank. We now present to you the manifestations of the mismanagement and the ineptitude and the potential corruption at the Bank of Ghana, which was revealed by the 2022 annual report and the financial statement of the Bank of Ghana. 1. The report revealed that millions of Ghana cedis have been wasted on frivolous administrative expenses. The Bank of Ghana spent a whopping 131.6 million Ghana cedis on motor vehicle maintenance and its running in the year 2022 alone. In fact, this represents 114% increase over the previous year's expenditure on the same line item. Similarly, foreign and domestic travels of the Bank of Ghana cost the taxpayer a staggering 97.4 million Ghana cedis, which again is an increase of 246% over the previous year's expenditure. The Bank of Ghana also dissipated another 8.6 million Ghana cedis on directors' remuneration alone. This represents about 87% increase over the previous year's expenditure. Directors' remuneration, 8.6 million Ghana cedis. If you are to compare this to the previous year, this represents 87% increase over the previous year. This simply means that Ghanaians were charged a mismanagement fee to deliver the collapse of the central bank. The Bank of Ghana further claimed to have spent a colossal 357.9 million Ghana cedis on banking supervision expenses for the year 2022 alone. The report further disclosed that the Bank of Ghana spent a whopping 67.9 million Ghana cedis on computers expenses alone, whilst communication expenses also amounted to 32 million Ghana cedis. Communication alone, just to meet the press, they spent 32 million Ghana cedis for 1 year, the year 2022. The report further disclosed that an undisclosed expense of 287.8 million Ghana cedis was paid. Undisclosed. They could not account for 287 million Ghana cedis. I beg to ask, is the central bank the Ministry of National Security? It's only the National Security that can announce an amount that is undisclosed. So an amount of 287.8 million Ghana cedis that they have failed to disclose to the auditors begs for certain questions. We also saw in the report that the Bank of Ghana indeed spent an amount of $2 million on gold watches alone. I don't know who they bought the watches for, whether it's for the governor and the deputies. $2 million only on watches. Perhaps the more troubling fact is that having brought the Bank of Ghana to this terrible financial state, the governor and his deputies have found it prudent and expedient to invest $250 million, representing almost 3 billion Ghana cedis on another head office building somewhere at Ridge. In our circumstances, this is the height of insensitivity in the management of the financing of a troubled country. A country that is in a major crisis. You have decided to award a contract worth $250 million, representing approximately 3 billion Ghana cedis for the purposes of getting yourself a new head office. We believe that this is insensitive and it is not right for the governor of the central bank to go into this expedition at this time. The Bank of Ghana's illegal printing of money is responsible for the depletion of Ghana's external reserve, which resulted in the unprecedented depreciation we saw in the year 2022, which obviously is the main cause of the hyperinflation of 54-point-something% we saw in the year 2022. It is important to state that the governor of the Bank of Ghana breached Section 37 of the Bank of Ghana Act 2012, Act 612, and Section 60 of the Bank of Ghana Amendment Act 2016, Act 918. In fact, the governor breached the laws of the central bank, which calls for urgent action against the governor of the central bank. An estimated 850,000 people were further reported by the World Bank recently that this singular act of the Bank of Ghana has pushed them down the poverty line as a result of the hyperinflation that the central bank caused in the year 2022. Clearly, there's blood on the hands of the governor of the central bank and his deputies. It is now obvious that many more members of the Akufo-Addo, Dr. Bawumia government will likely be keeping several more millions of dollars in their bedrooms and building a war chest to illegally buy electoral votes at both party primaries and the upcoming general elections in the year 2024. We will not be surprised that if members of the economic management team involved in this contest makes a strong showing, I won't be surprised at all, because clearly everything shows that maybe it's not only Madam Cecilia Dapa who has kept some money in her bedrooms. We in the NDC will continue to explore ways of rescuing this country to prevent it from the doom that has befallen several West African countries. Ladies and gentlemen, the IMF had made an offer to assist the government to develop a plan for recapitalization of the central bank. And that is why paragraph 18 of Ghana's Memorandum of Economic and Financial Policy, the MEFP, sent to IMF, stated this fact. Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen of the media, fellow countrymen and women, let me assure you that very soon Ghanaians will be made to pay for Bank of Ghana recapitalization levy, a tax to recapitalize the Bank of Ghana. So as we speak, because the central bank has collapsed virtually. It is, however, our position that we have so recklessly, the government of Ghana has so recklessly mismanaged the central bank and brought it to its knees and cannot remain at the helm of affairs of the bank without being held accountable. Those who have led this reckless and criminal conduct unleashed economic hardship and financial distress on the suffering people of Ghana must be held accountable on this particular action. In fact, impunity of the highest order can no longer be tolerated by the suffering masses of Ghanaians. We must not allow this dangerous precedent to be set for future leaders. In this regard, we in the NDC call for the resignation, immediate resignation of the governor of the central bank and his deputies within 21 days from today. We are resolved to embark on popular action to occupy the central bank and drive out the team of inept, callous, and criminally minded mismanagers of our finances to save the Bank of Ghana. What we will do is that the march will ensure accountability. Colleagues, the march to ensure accountability will begin in 21 days if the governor of the Bank of Ghana does not do the needful and pack bag and baggages out of that sacred institution that he has unfortunately mismanaged. Dr. Ernest Addison and his deputies must go. There has to be an end to this impunity now. Fellow countrymen and women, let us arise and save the Bank of Ghana. This is the only bank we have that belongs to us directly. The central bank has a big role to play. We cannot allow the Bank of Ghana to be managed and be drawn to this level. We call on all of you that if the governor fails to act by resigning, you join us to march to occupy the Bank of Ghana in 21 days' time, to force him out and to force his deputies out, because we cannot allow this to continue. Arise for Ghana. Fellow countrymen and women, arise for Ghana. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Okay, so before we do our usual tree presentation, we will take questions. Please, I know some of you just came. Let's restrict the movements. We are not done. There are very important issues to still discuss. So if you have a question here and you're a media man, only media men can ask questions. Just raise up your hand. You tell us your name, your media organization, and you keep your question very crisp. Let me start with you, my brother. Hold on. Let's have the spare microphone for that. So, leader, just take down the questions. How many questions, by the way, do we have? One here, one here. Only two? Two. Okay. All right.
Right. My name is Eric Mawenegbeta with TV3. So my question is to the minority leader. Is it the case that in 21 days, that's when some action can be taken? I ask this question in relation to previous engagement with the Bank of Ghana. The now ranking on the Finance Committee has had cause to raise concerns as to how the central bank governor has not honored invitations by Parliament over certain matters. And so is it because of that that you're resorting to a march instead of other pressing areas where you can demand accountability? And then lastly, on one of the reasons why the Bank of Ghana itself has explained why we are here has to do with the printing of money, as has been suggested by Dr. Atoforsen. What has the minority done? It's a critical question that's been asked because clearly you say the Bank of Ghana has violated the country's laws, and yet nothing has been done in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Kweku Asante, Joy FM. Some of the allegations against the Bank of Ghana governor borders on breach of law and even criminality. But from marching to the BOG head office to demand that he resigns, what measures will they take in Parliament to ensure accountability, either to get him to answer specifically if there are criminal questions to answer, and specifically when it comes to the breaches of the law, what are the consequences spelled out? Thanks.
All right, is that all? Okay, so the minority leader will deal with these questions, after which we will do the tree presentation. Thank you.
So let me start with the last one. The issue of what we can do as parliamentarians. Yes, the governor has breached the law, and Section 30 and Section 60 of the Bank of Ghana Amendment Act is clear on this matter. He can only print to support government expenditure using 5% of previous year's revenue as the benchmark. Unfortunately, the governor did 7.2% of GDP, representing about 30% of previous year's revenue. So he has not just breached it lightly, but you could see that he deliberately did this. What I can say is that it's only the Attorney General who has the power to prosecute someone who breaches the law. So it's not in the bosom of Parliament to prosecute. What we can only do as members of Parliament is to hold him before us. But unfortunately, the crime has been caused already. He has already destroyed our livelihood. In fact, the act, this singular act of printing 7.2% of GDP in 1 year in terms of revenue has pushed, according to the World Bank, 850,000 Ghanaians into the poverty line. It has not only done that. If you are to go further and drill down the numbers, you will notice that this singular act has also moved a number of Ghanaians from middle income to low income, and certain rich people have now become middle income. So the governor has messed us up big time. He has imposed an illegal inflation tax on the people. Inflation is a tax. It is an illegal tax because it does not have legislation. The governor has imposed an illegal inflation tax on the people of Ghana. That is why today when you go to the market, things that you used to buy it 1 cedi, the next day you go in and you will notice that you are buying it at 5 Ghana cedis. Clearly, this takes away your disposable income and push you further line the poverty line. This is what the governor has done. We can't continue to allow these things to happen. What we are seeking to do now is to secure our country. he should first leave the scene, because he has shown that he cannot stand firm for the people of Ghana. We've seen examples in other countries. We saw what Bernanke did in the United States. But what we are seeing here now is that we have seen a governor who has turned himself into a printer. He now owns a printing press. All what he does is to print money. We can't stand that. So we are asking him to leave, and he should leave now. And when he leaves, eventually we'll get a good governor. First of all, the first thing we are seeking to do now is to get him to stop the printing. Stop what he's doing, and then bring someone in and let that person be aware that that predecessor lost his job because he failed to adhere to the Bank of Ghana Act, and that is the reason why we are letting him go. And finally, on the issue of what we have done, why we are calling on the governor, I don't think there's nothing else we can do. Simple put, the governor must go. We have stated here today that we have given him 21 days as the main opposition party for him to pack his bags and leave that secret place called Bank of Ghana. He should leave. 21 days because we think as a governor he will need at least 3 weeks to hand over properly. So we are being charitable. We've given him 21 days. He should immediately pack his bag, write his handing over, and leave the central bank. If he fails to leave the central bank, we are urging you all, the media, fellow countrymen and women, NDC, even MPP, they should join us. Let us occupy the central bank and ask the governor to leave the scene, because he can't continue staying there. He has shown that he's incompetent. He doesn't care about livelihood of the central bank, because clearly he has failed on the constitutional mandate of price stability. He single-handedly, working with his deputies, has run the central bank down. As if that is not enough, knowing that the central bank has collapsed, he has further gone out there to decide that he's going to build head office worth 3 billion Ghana cedis, 250 million US dollars at this critical time. So clearly, he doesn't care. He doesn't care. We all know what he has done. We saw how he has mismanaged our resources. Bank of Ghana's resources. I don't think he will manage his business the way he has managed. So our friends from the media, it's clear that the central bank governor must go, and he will have to go now. 21 days start taking today. He should go. So help us in counting. In fact, Same, you have to assist us to do the countdown. We have to count down when the governor must go, and he must go now. Thank you.
Yes, before we do the tree presentation, let me acknowledge the presence of the Member of Parliament for North Tongue, Ranking Member for Foreign Affairs, also Ranking Member for Scandals, the son of Man Honorable Okujeto Ablakwa is here, and we have the Member of Parliament for Adaklu,